What needs to happen when a buyer and owner meet each other for the very first time? Hi, I'm Neal Isaacs. I'm here to tell you it is one of the most critical meetings that take place in the whole process, from listing a business to screening owners to finding the right buyer to getting the deal done and getting it closed. When the buyer and the owner meet each other, they instantly decide if they like each other, if they trust each other, and if there's any possibility a deal is going to get done. So today, in this video, I'm going to talk about what success is in a buyer-owner meeting. So let's take it back a little bit. Maybe you're selling your own business. Maybe you know your buyer. Maybe you've hired an intermediary and they're going to bring buyers to you. I'm a practicing intermediary. I sell other people's businesses, and this is how we do it. So number one, no buyer gets to meet our business owners until they know the business, they've signed an NDA, and they've showed us how they're going to buy the business. So we call this the path to payment. We want the result of the meeting to be an offer and to move forward to the sale of a business. And there's really no point of the buyer even meeting the owner if they can't consummate the sale. So hopefully, if you're an owner, don't meet with someone unless you know they have the money, and don't share too much. But if you're represented by someone like myself, an intermediary, hopefully they are using similar processes to screen, and more importantly, to make sure that they have the funds to close the deal. They may not have all the funds, but a path to payment could include a financing plan. They should have already talked to their banker, or if they're going to leverage a home, they should have already figured out how much they can pull out and got that process started and just waiting to find the right business. But how are they going to consummate this deal? So let's assume the buyer can buy the business and they're meeting with the owner. If this is a broker-driven process, hopefully the buyer will have read everything that the broker has prepared for the business owner. And in our shop, we prepare CBR, SIM. There's a lot of names for this document. There's a blind version that just said, this is great business, sign an NDA, I'll tell you more about it. But ultimately, if they're meeting with the owner, they should have already read the full book, the SIM, the CBR, the SIP. There's a million names for this book. But it should already have told the buyer where the business is, how many employees there are, how much they're paid, their dominant products, what their competition is. There's a thousand facts that should be included in this document. So my advice for any buyer going into a meeting like this is reread everything, right? You're meeting with the owner to ask questions that you couldn't get from the marketing materials. So study the marketing materials that have already been provided to you and only ask questions that could not be answered. The best questions are, hey, I noticed you sell this and this and this, but I didn't see where you've tried to sell this. Like, wouldn't this be a natural extension? What's your experience there? I love when buyers ask questions like that, because they're putting themselves in the shoes of the owner and they're saying, where could I do to take this business farther, right? So study the materials, write a bunch of questions down, have them written down. That's actually really important to have a plan, because the buyer-owner meeting really should be the buyer interviewing the owner. You've already learned about the owner, so it's not, we typically turn the tables around at the end of a meeting, to the last 30, 40 minutes. We'll say, hey, Mr. Owner, now that you listened to the buyer, and you heard the type of questions they're asking, what questions do you have for them? But most of the meeting is the buyer asking owner questions. If you have no questions, it'll be like, what are we doing here, right? I don't want to have a beer with you. I don't want to get to know you as a person. I want to buy your business. So come prepared if you're a business buyer. And if you're a business owner, look at the preparation that the business buyer has put into this meeting. So that's about preparation. Now, how about the tone? Business buyers, a lot of them are doing a search. They're looking at a ton of businesses. I'm sure it becomes a numbers game, but for every business owner, this is the only business they're selling. They built this from scratch. They put years of their time. They've sacrificed time with their family. They have utilized this business to put their children through college. The stories go on and on about how important this business is to the business owner. So be respectful, right? I mentioned at the top of this, business, the buyer and owner are deciding if they trust each other, if they like each other right off the bat. Some meetings, we can just cut them halfway. We already know nothing's going to happen. Keep in mind, even if you're talking to a million business owners looking to buy one, that you have to be extremely respectful and appreciate what they built. Hopefully you wouldn't even waste their time if you didn't respect what they build and want to buy it. But what this comes through as is, hey, just say it. Look, you built a heck of a business. I'm really impressed with A, B, and C. Name some specific things. Give them some kudos at the beginning and mean it, right? Don't just say it, but think about some things that impressed you when you read the business that maybe you've been looking for and why you want to meet the owner. Set the page by saying, hey, nice job building this business. I'm here because I'm trying to save all of that hard work. I'm going to do the hard work for my part of this chapter, but I want to save those startup pieces that you've already accomplished. That's a great way to start a meeting. And then just keep in mind that the language of business buyers is often different than the language of business sellers. I heard somebody mentioned on a LinkedIn the term boring business. Don't call somebody's business a boring business. I know in today's modern search term, what buyers mean is this is a Amazon proof, tried and true, consistent, reliable business. That's what it means to a buyer. But when a business owner hears this is a boring business, they're like, what are you talking about? I've done this for 20 years. There's nothing boring about this to me. So be careful about the language that you use, right? Something as simple as calling something a boring business, it may be a searcher term, it could be disrespectful to a business owner. So, take your hat off. Be humble when you're talking to the owner and be very cognizant of the terms you're using. And I would advise you keep it super simple. Don't make it into a meeting, a hoity-toity. Like just have a conversation, but be driven and have a purpose and have some walkways. The last thing business buyers I would recommend is say, as brokers, we direct this, but there should be like, this is the next state of action. I want to write you and expect my LOI at A, B, and C. Or if I could get A, B, and C, then I would write you an LOI. But be decisive when you're leaving the meeting about, what your next steps are. Because the business owner is like, okay, we spent all this time. What are we doing here? They want to hear it from you. And then obviously, most importantly, you want to do what you say that you're going to do. As business intermediaries, we're judging people by their actions. We're making them jump through all these hoops. And they're saying, I'm going to do this. We're saying, did they do that or not? And we're going to recommend those horses that we think can win. I hate to use the analogy of a horse race, but quite frankly, if you're a buyer and there's 50 other buyers, we're looking for the one that's going to finish the race. You should have a little bit of pressure if it's quality business. A lot of people want it to get it under contract, off the market as quickly as possible. That's what you're doing in a buyer owner meeting. We manage these processes. We run them in a very formulaic way just to make sure everyone has the chance they need to get their questions answered, and then they have a chance to make an offer. Hopefully your intermediary can do that if we're not helping you. But to look for that if you're a business owner and working with an intermediary, if they have a process for managing these. So failure in a buyer-owner meeting is when you do the same meeting over and over and over again, right? So we actually record buyer-owner meetings. I'll interview owners myself, get the frequently asked questions out of the way first, because unfortunately, every SIM says the owner's selling for this reason, and every buyer wants to hear it from the owner, right? They don't want to read it, they want to hear it from the owner. So it's our process to make these get buyers and owners connected, get their questions answered, but to make it efficient and to not have the owner suffer from a little bit of deal fatigue. That's probably the way I'll call it. So those are some things that I like to share. We have a template, we call it our what to expect email that we send out to the buyer and the owner. Hey, don't negotiate on price. Hey, ask all the questions you want. Hey, show up on time. If you have a spouse that has to be a part of this decision maker, bring them. Don't do a meeting and then say, I want to do it again with my spouse or my business. Don't do that. So we prep our buyers of how to behave, and we prep our owners for what to expect. And there's a whole nother thing there. If you want to ask me a question about a buyer owner meeting, reach out to me. I am Neal, the Raleigh business broker. I sell businesses for a living. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. Neal Isaacs, the Raleigh business broker. Thanks for watching.